Hello, today I'm reviewing the brand new Lian Lancool 3, which is available from today in two different versions. There's the RGB version, which I've got here in black. It's also available in white. And there's also a non-RGB version, also available in black and white. In terms of pricing, the RGB version in black, which I have, will set you back $159.99 US, with the white version costing you an extra $10. The non-RGB versions are $10 less. So taking a closer look at the case's front panel, you'll notice that we've got two aluminium strips on the front of the case. These aren't just for decoration, because if you pull the panel, the tempered glass side door pops open. The door can then be swung out and lifted away. Removing the other side panel, it's exactly the same process. Pull the aluminium panel to open the door, then tilt the door out and lift away. Taking a look at the case's front I/O, we've got two buttons for controlling the case's built-in LED controller. We've then got a combined headphone and microphone jack, a reset and power button. We've got two USB 3.0 Type A ports and a single USB 3.2 Type C port. If you prefer, it is possible to reconfigure the front panel to have the front I/O at the bottom of the case. To remove the top panel, there's a captive thumb screw at the back. Once it's been loosened, the top panel can simply be slid backwards and lifted away. Taking a look at the panel we've just removed, you'll see there's no dust filter beneath it, and Lian are going with just mesh at the top. At the top of the case, we've got a removable fan stroke radiator bracket, which can accommodate up to three 140 or three 120mm fans, and up to a 420mm radiator with a maximum thickness of 75mm, including the fans and radiator. If you're planning on going with a custom loop, you'll be pleased to see there's a cutout for a fill port. To remove the top bracket, you just simply need to loosen the two captive thumb screws at the back. The bracket can then be tilted upwards and lifted away. To remove the front panel, it's important the tempered glass doors have either been opened or removed, and then it can simply be pulled off from the front. Again, taking a look at the front panel we've just removed, you'll notice there's no dust filters behind it, and Lian say the size of the holes they've gone for on the mesh offer the best balance between airflow and dust filtration. If you would rather have dust filters, Lian do offer a kit for the Lancool 3 as an optional extra. With the front panel removed, you'll see we've got three ARGB PWM fans pre-installed at the front. If you prefer, you can mount up to three 120mm fans or up to a 360mm radiator at the front. Like with the previous version of the Lancool, we do have a removable fan stroke radiator bracket at the front, although the mechanism for removing it is now toolless. There's a latch at the top you just need to push backwards, and then the bracket can be tilted forward and lifted away. For transportation purposes, or if you're mounting a heavy push-pull configuration at the front, there is an option to secure the bracket with thumb screws. The front bracket can be mounted in 4 different positions, so there's 2 different slots at the front, and the bracket can also be mounted either way round. At the bottom of the case, we've got a tray-style dust filter which can be pulled out from the back. At the bottom of the case, we've got a mesh panel. It's also a door which is magnetically attached. To open it, all you need to do is pull it down from the top. Once the front panel has been removed, the mesh panel is also removable by pulling it forward. Moving into the main body of the case, and the Lancool 3 will accommodate motherboards up to E8X in size, up to a maximum width of 283mm. We've got a sliding cable bar over to the right hand side of the motherboard. To move it, you need to simply loosen the 2 thumb screws at the back. The sliding cable bar can be slid to your desired position and then secured by tightening the 2 thumb screws up again at the back. Over to the right hand side of the motherboard, we've got lots of multi-purpose mounting slits, for example for mounting pumps or distro plates. You can see the Lancool 3 has another 140mm PWM fan installed at the back, although this one doesn't have any ARGB on it. In terms of CPU cooler height, it's up to a maximum of 185mm, so you shouldn't have any problems fitting a large premium air cooler in the case. Similarly, you shouldn't have any problem fitting a large GPU. We've got 8 horizontal PCI expansion slots, and the Lancool 3 will accommodate large GPUs up to a maximum length of 420mm. If you do want to go with a large GPU, you'll be pleased to hear that the Lancool 3 includes a GPU support bracket. If you prefer to mount your graphics card vertically, you can do so using the O11 Dynamic Evo's vertical GPU kit. At the bottom of the case, we've got a removable fan stroke radiator bracket, which has 3 individually removable plates. On each of these plates, we've got mounting holes for either a pump reservoir combo or an SSD. If you want to mount fans or a radiator at the bottom, each of these plates is individually removable for improved airflow. In terms of fan or radiator support, it's up to 3 120mm fans at the bottom are up to a 360mm radiator, up to a maximum thickness of 80mm to include the fans and radiator. To remove the bottom bracket, you simply need to remove the two screws at the front of the case, and the bracket can be slid forward and lifted away. You'll notice we've got two sets of screw holes at the bottom, and this is because the bottom bracket can be mounted in two different positions. At its position furthest to the back, you've got more space at the front for a front mounted fan or radiator. And the space you have at the front of the case for fans and radiators varies between 55 and 80mm, depending on where you have both the bottom and front fan stroke radiator brackets. If you bring the bracket further to the front, you're going to have more space at the back of the case if you want to have tubes at the back. Just like at the front of the case, we've got another mesh door which is magnetically attached and can simply be pulled down to open it. Taking a look at the back of this panel, you'll notice we've got mounting holes for up to 3 2.5-inch drives. Although if you're not planning to mount drives here, this bracket is removable. There's 4 screws holding it in place, and once these have been removed, the SSD bracket can simply be lifted away, leaving just the mesh for improved airflow. Moving into the rear compartment, we've got 2 magnetically attached cable covers. These work as doors. They can simply be tilted out and then lifted up. With these removed, you'll see we've got plenty of cable cutouts in all the right places, although it's only the 2 main cutouts over to the right hand side of the motherboard that have rubber grommets on them. Cable management at the back of the Lancool 3 looks like it should be a breeze, with 3 large Velcro cable straps and 5 smaller Velcro cable straps. Taking a closer look at the larger cable straps, you can see that the cables can be organised into 3 different compartments, and also each of the smaller cable straps have a right angled metal plate which should add additional support. We've got space to mount up to 4 A-RGB hubs or controllers at the back of the Lancool 3. 3 of them are between the larger Velcro cable straps, while the 4th is mounted on a movable bracket behind the motherboard. To move the bracket, you simply need to remove the thumb screw at the top. The bracket can simply be lifted out and moved further towards the back of the case. The case also has an additional 3 A-RGB headers to accommodate any additional A-RGB devices in the build and allow you to control them using the case's front buttons. We've got 2 toolless 2.5-inch drive mounting brackets at the back of the case. Installing drives in these is really straightforward. You just need to pull the right side of the tray towards the back of the case. Your 2.5-inch drive can be slid into place and it secures completely toollessly. There is the option to secure the drive into place with a thumb screw over towards the right hand side. At the bottom of the case, our power supply is going to go at the back, and the Lancool 3 will accommodate full-sized ATX power supplies up to a maximum length of 220mm, although if you remove the drive trays you're going to have much more space than that. It's great to see that the case comes with a power supply bracket, allowing you to install your power supply from the back. Out of the box, the Lancool 3 has 2 drive trays installed at the bottom, and each of these can accommodate either a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drive. In the accessory box you get an additional 2 drive trays which simply stack on top of these drive trays. So in terms of drive support, the Lancool 3 can accommodate up to a total of 12 2.5-inch drives, or 4 3.5-inch drives and 8 2.5-inch drives. The drive trays at the bottom can also be moved into different positions. The trays towards the front of the case can either be installed or removed, and removing them really is straightforward. There's a thumb screw at the back which needs to be loosened, and then the drive tray can simply be pulled backwards. With the front set of trays removed, if you loosen the thumb screw at the back trays, they then can be slid forward to your desired position before securing with a thumb screw. If you're not planning on installing any drive trays at the bottom, the rear set of drive trays can also be removed. You simply need to slide them backward and up, and then they can simply be lifted away. So what I'm going to do now is give you a look at the build I put together in the Lancool 3. So the build looks great, but what about the temperatures? So our i7 12700K idled at 27 degrees and reached a maximum of 77 degrees during a 10-minute IDA64 stability test. The RTX 3070 Ti idled at 30 degrees and reached a maximum of 63 degrees during the stability test. So it probably won't come as a big surprise given the size of this case and the range of fan mounting locations that you have that we got such good temperatures. I have made a separate best fan configuration video for the Lancool 3 and you'll find a link to that in the description. And in that video I tested 16 different thermal configurations in this case, with the radiator at the front, the radiator at the top, the GPU horizontal, the GPU vertical, fans below the GPU, no fans below the GPU, removing the hard drive cages, seeing if that made any difference, a whole variety of different things. And the results were really interesting. So if you are thinking of doing a build in this case, you're definitely going to want to check out that video. And like I say, you'll find a link to it in the description. So now we come on to my experience of building in the Lancool 3, and being such a big case with multiple removable fan stroke radiator brackets, an absolute massive amount of Velcro cable straps at the back, and a removable brackets for fan hubs, the building in this case was an absolute breeze. There was only one slight issue that I had in terms of cable management, and that was managing the 24-pin cable extension at the back. It was quite bulky and it did prevent me getting a really good seal on that cable cover at the back, which is magnetically attached. And because it's magnetically attached, I think that's a good idea to have the doors closed magnetically. But the problem is when there's any slight resistance to the cables, you can't get the magnetic panels to close. And if you can't get the magnetic panels to close, because the rear door is a tempered glass door, which is also magnetically attached, it's not going to hold the panels closed. So I do think the addition of magnetic doors for those rear cable covers was a good idea. But like what they've done with the front fan stroke radiator bracket or the SSD brackets, where you have the option to back that up with a thumb screw, would have been a nice idea. So that would be my only tip for improvement going forward. I think the magnetic doors are a good idea, but also having the ability to close them with a thumb screw so that you're not having to worry about getting that tempered glass door back on at the end. The only other slight issue that you might run into is if you do decide to replace the front fans, the connectors that the fans plugs into looks very similar to what you would actually plug Lian Uni fans into. And you might think it's a simple matter of just plugging the Lian Uni fans into that triple splitter cable. I did try it out. And what happens if you plug the fans into that, only 2 of the Lian Uni fans in the group actually light up. So it's not going to be an option doing that and using the case's front ARGB buttons to control the Uni fans. It's not going to work. So moving on to the things I liked about the Lancool 3, and there was an absolute load of things I liked about it. Being from Lian, as you would expect, the build quality was excellent throughout, and I had absolutely no issues at all with it. It was also, as I've said, relatively easy to build in, being quite a large case with lots of removable brackets and good Velcro cable straps as well. I also like the fact that you're going to be able to fit an awful lot of cooling hardware in here. You're going to be able to fit massive air coolers up to a 420mm radiator at the top, or up to 3 360mm radiators. As well, in terms of drive support, you're not going to be limited here as well. It's 12 2.5-inch drives, or 8 2.5-inch drives, and 4 3.5-inch drives. I also like all the changes Lian have made with this new version. I think the aluminium panels on the front, having them as door handles for the glass panels at the side, was a brilliant idea. I love the sliding cable bracket to the right hand side of the motherboard, which means you're going to have the rubber grommets at the side in the perfect position regardless of the size of motherboard that you go for. So that was really smart. Having the bracket at the bottom, the individually removable panels, was a great idea, meaning you can use some of them for fans, some of them for SSDs, or actually have some fans and leave the covers on in other places, which is going to look really clean. In terms of drive mounting, I love the toolless drive mounting at the back for the 2.5-inch drives, and the bigger drive trays down at the bottom. Being able to stack them in certain places, you could have 3 at the bottom, or 2, or 1, no matter what you wanted, and being able to slide them in a whole variety of positions, really good. And my favourite thing to do at the bottom is just remove them all together, leaving plenty of space for the power supply and cable extensions should you want. Other things that were really good with this case, the airflow in it is excellent. If you check out my thermal testing video, you'll see that. The included fans, I tested them in that video, and they're of a good quality and provide good airflow. So with the built-in cost of those fans, you're not actually going to have to go out and pick up additional fans because they do a good job. I also like the fact that the case's built-in ARGB controller had an additional 3 headers, so you're going to be able to plug other devices into that. And I was also really impressed with the box the screws came in, allowing you to store the screws in individual compartments. So this brings me on to the things I didn't like about the Lancool 3, and the first thing I'm going to mention is something I did mention with the previous version of the case. It's great in terms of airflow that you've got a mesh panel at the side, and particularly when combined with bottom intake fans, you get great GPU temperatures. The downside to that is if you decide to use ARGB fans at the bottom for intake, the light shining from those fans lights up the bottom compartment, and then you're then able to see all your power supply cables through the front mesh panel. So I think the front of the Lancool 3 with the new aluminium panels on each side and the 3 140mm fans installed at the front looks really clean. It looks slightly less clean if you replace the 140mm fans with 120mm fans, and the reason you may want to do that is you're going to get the best CPU temperatures installing your radiator at the front set to intake. The problem is you can't fit a 420mm radiator at the front, and if you go with a 360 it's going to have 120mm fans. Because these fans are going to be a little bit narrower, you are actually able to see the fan bracket past these and see through into the inside of the case, which doesn't look quite as clean as when you've got 140mm fans installed at the front and you're not able to see into the main body of the case from the front. I've also already mentioned the metallic cable covers at the back. I think the magnetic doors are a great idea, but it would be nice to back them up with a thumb screw, particularly if you're planning on using bulky cable extensions. So now we get into a little bit of nitpicking. These aren't really negatives, but they're just small things where I think things could be improved slightly. It's great that the case comes with 4 good fans in terms of airflow, but I would love to have had an additional ARGB fan at the back rather than a non-RGB fan. Also, in terms of rubber grommets, good to see that the main sliding cable bar had rubber grommets on them, but none of the other cutouts had rubber grommets, and certainly in a case of almost $160, it would have been nice to have seen some more rubber grommets in place. Also, I've already praised the really nice box that allows you to store all your screws in individual compartments, although the screws come in a bag altogether, so you're going to have to take them out, sort them, build up the compartments and then put them into the compartments. And it would have been much better if they came in the individual compartments that were labelled with a number, allowing you to pick the screws out so much easier. And the final slight negative point to mention is we don't have any dust filters at the side, the front or the top. Although with the pattern of mesh that Lian and Lee have gone with, it should do a good job at keeping dust out. And as well, they do offer the kit as an optional extra. And this does seem to be a way that a lot of cases are now going, although I much prefer having the option to either install or remove the dust filter myself, and in general I do tend to leave them in. So I absolutely love the changes that Lian and Lee have made with the Lancool 3. The previous version of this case was really good, but with all these changes they have made this one so much better. So I can 100% recommend the Lancool 3. Now, when this one launches at a price of $159.99, it's actually going to be slightly more expensive than what the O11 Dynamic Evo is selling for. And I think it's probably going to be this case's main competition. And a lot of you are probably going to be thinking, which of the two should I go for? I think for me, the big difference between the two of them is with the O11 Dynamic Evo, although you can get a mesh panel from the front, I was never a big fan of it. And its biggest advantage is the glass in the front, the glass on the side that you're going to be able to look in and see your whole build. The other side advantage to it is the fact that your power supply and the cables are going to be in a separate compartment at the back where you're definitely not going to see them. The downside to that case is I definitely prefer the shape of this case on the desk. It's thinner and taller, whereas the O11 Dynamic Evo is a wider case and takes up a wider footprint on your desk. The other big advantage to this case is it comes with 4 very good fans in terms of airflow. Although the O11 Dynamic Evo is going to be a little bit cheaper than this case when it launches, It doesn't come with any fans, so when you factor those fans in, it's going to cost you significantly more. So I think that's going to be a question that most people are considering, which of these two should I go for? My personal opinion, while I love this case, I love the OLED Dynamic Evo even more, but this is still an absolutely brilliant case and I can 100% recommend it. So hopefully you have found this video useful. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.